Hi everyone, namaste and welcome back to another episode of Circular Chat at Ecosati Nepal. And today we are doing another conversation on Circular Chat, and this is our 8th episode, and I'm very excited to call our speaker for today. He's Birendra Bista, who is the founder and executive director of Nature Nexus Nepal. To give a short background about Birendra, he's a conservation practitioner and environmental professional, actively involved in habitat restoration, biodiversity conservation, and community-based environmental initiative in Nepal. So with that short introduction of Birendra, let me send a request to Birendra so he can join. Request to join? So waiting. Okay. Maybe someone, let me see. Maybe now you should be able to get the request, Birendra. Okay, there. Namaste, Birendra. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, Dimaji, for this wonderful, invitation. I am absolutely thrilled to be with you.
Yeah, we're also on our side as well, we're very much happy to have you here and then start the conversation on community, habitat restoration, and everything, every wonderful thing that you do. But before we start, let's break the ice. Like, how was your day? So what was like Saturday for you like?
Dimaji, actually, today I went to the, field, right? Today we had, one orientation program, right? So we engaged with young people, especially in one of our project sites. So yeah, though it is, Saturday, but still my workforce is for the community and for the young people, right? So yeah, this morning we had a great orientation program with young people, and then after I was rushing toward the home. I was thinking about today's interview program, right? And I was a little bit concerned about power supply cut up, right, because of electricity blackout problem. Especially the weather was a little bit gloomy, right, and cloudy. So I was absolutely concerned about oh my god, that time if the electricity power would cut up, the plant would change, right? So yeah.
Yeah, like sometimes I'm like I'm technical problem also, but then I think because it's like very informal, uh, like like catching up kind of session to technical problem boy. But when we kind of like postpone or like understand that things can happen, life can happen. I know they were it wouldn't like be a problem, but I think we will come back to, like you said, you work with community, young people. So before even to start, can you let us know like because your conservation or environmental work start गर्नुभन्दा अगाडि पनि what was your inspiration, and if before that you could like introduce yourself. मैले अलिकति introduction त दिइसकेको थिएँ अलिकति अगाडि, but then maybe if there is something that you want to add, please.
Okay, why not, Vimaji? Thank you so much once again to EcoSati Nepal. I am absolutely honored, and this is my esteemed privilege as well, right? And this is my first time I think I'm going, Instagram live. Actually, my name is Birendra Bista, right? I belongs to, like this Sudirpachin province, right, Kailali district, and so yeah, I began my journey in social development sector in 2014, right? Since 2014 I started engaging with different domains, right? Before jumping in this conservation sector, I was a very active advocate in sexual and reproductive health, right? If audiences are there, and I just need to tell, because I was part of sexual and reproductive health, right, in Nepal. So yeah, we did a lot of program, right? Almost like for 1 decade, right? So I was engaged with that, and my inspiration is, the inspiration I actually gained, right? Because I found communities and their connection with the nature is absolutely indispensable, right? So we cannot cut up one domain. We have to take both domains, right? And the problem is there is a gap, there is a void, loophole, and that loophole is that we have unbelievable amount of traditional ecological knowledge, right? And if you see in this lower belt of Nepal, which we call Tarai, belt, right? We have Tharu community, right? One of the strongest assets, right? So I believe, right, if their traditional ecological knowledge are to be documented, right, for reference, right, for upcoming plan, then that would be a massive, movement, right, and change. So it came in my mind. I was wondering about this kind of like initiative. So yeah, I mean, it actually pushed me, right? Come on, right? You have to engage with this kind of approach, right? So yeah, it made me feel that I think the time has come, right? Young people need to come up with these kind of ideas. So yeah, that's what I did.
So that's how तपाईँले चाहिँ आफ्नो इन्सपिरेसन पाउनुभयो. Can you, if it's possible, can you add a little bit on like कम्युनिटीसँगको यो इन्टरेक्सन गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ युजली लाइक देयर कुड बी सो मेनी टपिक्स होइन, तर हजुरले चाहिँ होइन म ह्याबिटेट रिस्टोरेसन वा कम्युनिटी बेस्ड खालको कन्जर्भेसनमा चाहिँ आई वुड लाइक टेक द अप्रोच लाइक यु मेन्सन होइन कति इन्टरभेन्सनहरू छ, ग्यापहरू देख्नुभयो, बट वाइ वाज इट भेरी इम्पोर्टेन्ट फर यु टु choose like this kind of domain specifically, like habitat restoration or community based kind of conservation?
Vimaji, I think this is a very good question, right? And I need to take you, like, why, habitat restoration is very much significant, right? Habitat restoration is not only about plantation, right? So when it comes to plantation, we only plant, only one type of species, right? But habitat restoration is all about a very holistic approach. Holistic approach in the sense, restoration is one thing, right? But that restoration actually engages, right? Actually engages community, number one, aspect, right? Community, then after diversity. Diversity is what kind of diversity, right? You have different, like indigenous species, right? Different plant, not only one type of plant, but different plant which are indigenous to the local community, right? So we try to adopt that kind of methodology, right? First, right? And it is very unique because I think we will also go to that point, like which is circular economy. But before that, habitat restoration is itself in circular economic form, right? So I can give you a very simple and very like easy to understand kind of example, right? So when leaves fall down on the land, right? It converts into compost, right? When it when it gets dried, it converts into like compost, and that compost, what it does, it actually nourishes the plant, it nourishes the soil, and that soil again like help in the growth of the saplings, right? And that sapling helps for wildlife species, right? For example, birds, endangered species, right? And again, those wildlife species will scatter or disperse the seeds here and there, right? So it is like regenerative process, right? So it is itself in circular economy, right? So it is a very vast extension understanding of habitat restoration, right? So, and it is very much essential, especially right if we are working in the international transboundary corridor. So Tarai is connected with neighboring country, so it is very unique in geographical representation as well. So we have our neighboring country as it is open border. So this specific transboundary corridor is a mobility path. It's a mobility path for like elephant, tiger, other species, right? So we have to think in a very different way, right? Not monoculture kind of plantation, but also with the mindset of planting diverse kind of plant species, right? Yeah, that's what I have to tell you, right? Habitat in restoration is very much significant. Yeah.
Awesome. Like, I mean, that's very interesting to kind of like realize, I know nature ma everything is like very regenerative. Ani plus kati kuraharu say you don't need to have intervention, I know. Like the nature itself knows a lot. And like last time हामीसँग चाहिँ स्पिकरहरू हुनुहुन्थ्यो, लाइक उहाँहरू चाहिँ नेचर इन्सपायर्ड डिजाइनदेखि एकदमै नै प्रभावित भएर चाहिँ लट अफ थिङ्स दे डु इज लाइक इन्सपायर्ड फ्रम द नेचर. सो हजुरले भने जस्तै there doesn't need to be intervention. उनीहरू आफै एउटा साइकलमा इकोसिस्टममा घुमिरहेको हुन्छ, and then that kind of like is something that we will also learn, and it's a very good part of, not like it's a big part of the circular economy itself. Then I'm very interested in know अर्को पार्टमा चाहिँ you're also the founder and the
Yeah,
executive director of Nature
yeah,
Nexus Nepal, but
yeah.
maybe there are some people who do not or have not heard about Nature Nexus Nepal till now, but then now they have the opportunity. So for people just like say थाहा छैन, how would you describe Nature Nexus Nepal? What's mission? What was the like before the objective or the vision of this organization that you have now?
Wow, I think this question I was ready. I
Wait.
was waiting for this question, right? Yeah, Nature Nexus Nepal, right? In short, we call it Triple N, right? Triple N, actually, I mean, personally, like how we thought about developing this kind of platform, right? Because of the inspiration, right? I found young people are somehow missed out, right? In the intervention, right? In the conservation sector, right? So, like, I found young people need to be a part of conservation, right? I thought like young people should be driving force, right, when it comes to conservation. So Nature Nexus Nepal actually came with a vision of restoring the nature, right? Restoring the nature, then building the communities and strengthening the regenerative future ahead, right? That's the mission of Nature Nexus Nepal, right? So we try to connect people and the nature, right? Because they are reciprocal to one another, right? If there is a scarcity of one domain, of course it will directly impact the another domain, right? So it has to be interlinked, right? It has to be part of the ecosystem. So Nature Nexus Nepal also work with community, young people, indigenous communities as well, and so it connects like diverse groups of people with different intersectionality. That is our like values, right? And the mission of the Nature Nexus Nepal is like we do connect people, nature through our like core function. Our core function is habitat restoration, like we previously discussed on. Then after agroforestry probably we will discuss later. Then like youth leadership also, like youth engagement, right? Actually to foster the long-term understanding or long-term sustainability of nature and human well-being. So this is how we work, with the structure-wise understanding of Nature Nexus Nepal. And it's a like platform, like young people can join, they can do internship, right? They can come, they can like try to understand the exposure trip as well, right? So we try to offer a diverse, benefits as well if someone is very interested to learn.
Wow, that's a very nice thing that you said, Birendra. किनभने I think there are so many youths होइन अहिले चाहिँ like with so much of energy, like के गरौँ भन्ने हुन्छ नि, like motivation भएको, यो mindset भएको, but then often like you said they lack the platform or the opportunities, होइन? And then if there are something that is really interesting, maybe working with community. हिजो मात्रै मैले एउटा बहिनीसँग कुरा गरेको थिएँ, and she was like, I want to work with community and maybe more specific to environment. So I would definitely pass this information to her. But can I know like कहिले चाहिँ Nature Nexus Nepal established भएको, like कुन year मा, and then where is it like office based in Kailali, or like is the how is like more like operation side मा चाहिँ, to understand like if people really want to reach out and they want to do involve with something, what are they aiming for,
Oh, wow. Like Nature Nexus Nepal got established in 2025, right? It's a very fresh, newly registered like institution, right? So it is based in Sudirpasin province, the temporary headquarter of Sudirpasin province, Dhangari. And so yeah, it got established in 2025. So just 1 year, almost 1 year passed down. So we are aiming to expand as well, maybe like beyond the Kailali district, right? So we have 9 districts within Sudirpasin province, right? So like when like when we established it, we never like planned, right, that we would expand the work, the function of this nature nexus Nepal in other district, right. We were only like restricted within Koiladi district, but because of the recent work that we did with the community, right, that we did with the nature, now we got the confidence, right. Our board member are also very much satisfied with the the output outcomes, right, and the engagement of the community. So we try to think about the expansion of nature nexus Nepal. So yeah, it got registered in 2025, and we got like all like documents, right, everything from the district administrative office here in Koiladi. So yeah,
Mm.
it's going smoothly as far as I have experienced so far.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that, Birendraji. के अरे तपाईँलाई धेरै धेरै like बधाई firstly because then it's really fresh like you said, but also like a lot of good wishes that maybe in the future it can expand more. And I also like the concept of like decentralized गर्ने होइन, but because I mean it's a good topic, like you're starting from the Sudurpashchim side, which is not often, I would say, like very centric to, because so everything is happening in the center like Kathmandu, Lalitpur, but then there is a possibility where people or youth from that region can participate, and we need that kind of voice from that area, so thank you for sharing that. अनि जब तपाईँले भन्नुभयो it's been just like 1 year, है. I'm guessing that there might be a lot of challenges that you faced in the in the initial stage, and ecosystem or habitat restoration concept of Harry. You also have this like a very long-term vision, long-term work, like so a lot of investment, time in terms of time, money, or let's say तपाईँको work होइन, त्यो पनि धेरै धेरै इन्भेस्ट हुन्छ. त्यो पेसेन्स I mean त्यो सिनारियो हेर्दाखेरि and then Nature Nexus नेपालको initial starting हेर्दाखेरि, were there any challenges that you faced on the ground? And maybe you say, I'm asking you in the sense like maybe there would be other youth, I know, interested and inspiring youth, and they could learn from your learnings that you had in your initial days.
Wow. So before answering to your question, right, like the reason we established here in Hungary, especially in Sudirpatsin province, like you mentioned, everything is centric, right? Only about Kathmandu, right? I know Kathmandu, the capital, right? I understand there are a lot of exposure, a lot of opportunities for young people, right? But if you understand deep down, right, like we have to connect one place to another, right. I think if you start locally, then you will start thinking globally, right. That's the motto. Actually, I actually earned, right. So I never thought about like registering maybe from Kathmandu, from other cities, right. I decided we decided with determination, right. I think the office would be registered or established here in Hungary itself. It would not be here and there, right? So we decided because Sudirpatsin itself is a very far from the center, and we have unbelievable amount of energy, right? Natural resources is abundant here in Sudirpatsin. The reason actually we did so because we have uh, seven like hilly district, right, mountain district, except Koilani and Kanchanpur. We have other remaining all are situated in hilly geographical representation, right. So we try to find like what is there, why it is not being documented, right. We try to connect, right. So we began from Koilani district this year. So then next year we will go like if it is feasible for us to work with other districts, we will definitely do that. And as far as the challenges, right, what challenges came, what obstacles on the way, like for Nature Nexus Nepal, and there was a lot, right. I think can you imagine, right. I mean, just there are so many institutions, right, NGOs, right, INGOs, right, working for the conservation, right. So can you imagine a purely youth-led NGO, so-called nature it's called platform, right. So a lot of like players, a lot of players outside, right. So I thought it might be a threat, right, it might be a competition, right, but I did not go with that sentiment. I went with the sentiment like, why don't we collaborate, right? Why don't it has to be diverse, like youth led, conservation, like institution, or maybe other, conservation, NGOs, right? So when we work together, probably we have different, ideas we can generate. So that is one thing. But of course, registering this NGO was very much tough, right? You had to go, I mean, like we had to go through, several steps, right? Not single step, but several steps, right? So you got in all the permission from Wada level, then after different types of government, right? Local, then after provincial, then after like federal, right? So like not easy registering the NGO, was like learning as well, right? You have to be patient, right? You have to be very humble and very much kind, right? You have to find out like-minded, people across the board, right? Like if they are really interested to register the NGO, right, and work for the nature, work for the community. So we did that. So it was very, challenging, right? Because I was doing my fellowship in Assam, so right after my fellowship, right, so I came back here in Nepal, in my hometown. So I started doing baseline survey. So we call it rudimentary assessment, right, to know about nature, to know about community, to know about the possibility of upcoming habitat restoration program. So we researched, we studied thoroughly about the ecosystem, the community, like people. Then I drafted one proposal, and the proposal got selected, right? So I decided, then after we decided, so I think we have to register one like NGO like based in Hungary. So we did that. Then after we collected like-minded people, and so we have 70% of like female participation in our board member. So like
Wow.
yeah, we did that. So yeah, this way we did that.
Mabaka
But
pa happy boy.
thank you. But the problem is that absolutely, I don't want to, affiliate
Mm.
this challenge with like politics, right? But of course, right, it comes with so many obstacles, right, on the way to on the way to the success, right? Uh, and there are a lot of federation as well, and there are a lot of such players, very dangerous players on outside, right? So you have to be very much kind-hearted, humble to their nature, humble to their what they are doing, right, and try to convince in a such a way that we work collaboratively, right? So that was like our motto, our mantra. So we did
Mhm.
that.
Mm. I mean, also, I mean, to there were so many things that you said. I also like I mean, like reciprocate with, like often kati times say everything when something is new, it's like always like, oh, it's a competition, but nikako nazaria sa. And especially when it's like youth led, I mean, oh, youth like kati na थाहा हुन्छ र like हामी बुढापाकालाई अझै बढी थाहा हुन्छ एक्सपिरियन्स हामी मान्छेहरू होइन उनीहरू भर्खरै आएका नानी बुढाबुढी भन्ने खालको पनि एक किसिमको मेन्टालिटी छ जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई नेपालमा चाहिँ but I think हजुरको यो collaborative approachमा चाहिँ there is so much thing that we can even see and but more importantly like achieve in the sense of community. I mean, I probably like when you mentioned like the board member are more than 70% of women. I think I'm very happy to know, and like, we have some comments as well from Bhagyaji that that is in like a clap. And I feel like nature or climate, somebody women has a very different kind of connection. हामीसँग चाहिँ we as a feminine energy also, well, we spend a lot of time with nature and we connect with. So they're being on the table, being on the board member, there is this opportunity to bring those kind of thoughts, knowledge, and that kind of diversity knowledge. So kudos to your team, and also congratulations on having that. My next question would be, Birendra, for you is like ecosystem. Agi मैले अलिकति mention गरिसकेँ तर ecosystem restoration भनेपछि there is so much of time going in, होइन? Like to restore something, it's gonna take a lot of time, होइन? But then for you and your team member, to patience what consistency राख्नलाई चाहिँ what keeps you motivated on the ground? किनभने is it gonna work out in the next years, होइन? Like is it gonna like take a longer time to impact हेर्नलाई चाहिँ? And what is like something that is like, okay, this is working and we're gonna keep continuing doing that one, Nikura. So how does that motivation comes for you and your team?
Wow, very relevant question, right? Yeah, I think I found people I have saw like different I mean they are amazing people, but by the way, but I have found uh, some people actually, right, like because of certain circumstances, right, they had to give up, right, in the midst of the beautiful approach, right. I've seen, right, and I've practically understood the reason behind that, right. So it's not that much easy, right, whenever you are working in the development sector, right? Not easy, right? You have to go through each and every nook and corner of the society, right? There is societal values, right? There are certain norms and ethics you have to respect, right? Certain norms and ethics, right? And of course, right, when there is a mutual understanding between two parties, right? For example, Nature Nepal and the community, so when there is a strong foundation of the bonding, a kind of relationship between like nature and the people, if we try to make community understood, like about why this is very significant, right, for generation to come. So what keeps me motivated actually is like the bonding, right, we strengthen with the community, right, because community is our core stakeholder. We directly stumble on community, we directly stumble on them, these people, right, because ecosystem is not only like inside the forest kind of thing, right. It is a very broad understanding, right. Ecosystem connects people as well, right. So yeah, community number one, right. So like it actually if you have a very good bonding and there's good understanding among like community members, then I feel like, oh yeah, this is gonna work. This is really going to make the impact in a very positive way, in a very long run, in a very sustainable way, right? So we have Tharu community, right? It's not. I mean, like there are a lot of things that we can discuss later, after this conversation, right? But Tharu community is real custodian of the nature, right? They are the real custodian, right? Because they lived with the experience of ecological traditional knowledge. So, I mean, I felt, wow, they have, these adequate, amount of knowledge, right? So if somehow we connect differently, not directly, but differently, where they feel, safe space as well to work with us, right? So I think so we have our, ethics, right? Our values of nature and existing path. So we try to have those things, in our understanding, right? So if slightly one mistake, then we have to rework again, and it will time. And ecosystem is not easy, right? It's like time taking. Like people might feel, wow, like this year we planted, for example, like in just example, last year we planted more than 43,000 of saplings, right? 43,000 of saplings in around 45 hectares of land, degraded land, we're talking about. So degraded land where we try to, restore those degraded land back to the originality. Like degraded land is just like desertification, right. If not taken the right, if not taken the right action, probably it will change the whole ecosystem, right. It will degrade the biodiversity. If biodiversity is degrading, it will directly impact the species, right, both biotic and abiotic components of the nature of the ecosystem, right? So that's why it's very much essential as well to understand every living beings, every human, right, on this planet, why it is absolutely important, right, to protect Mother Earth, to protect the planet. So yeah, ecosystem, it will take time, to actually give the best canopy, right. When there is a best canopy, right, diversity, within the ecosystem, right, it will be amazing, right. And the impact is not a short term, it is a very long term. It will take time. It will take time. It is, through the process, it will also need care. It will also need protect. It will also need water. It will also need, a very a very understandable assets, understandable stakeholder like we have. Yeah, so it will take time.
Hmm. I mean, like just listening to you, I find that you do have that patience and motivation from so much from the community, from the nature itself. I know, like also the panaste community, some trust to build gonna lie. There needs to be time, and then
Mm.
even the trust like to take like a trade gonna lie. It's a lot of things, eh? Because you just have built that trust, and you cannot break it. And similarly, like nature, but a lot of things, there are so many elements interconnected, and that kind of is like not just about the impact, which is long term, but also like what it teaches you on the way. It's very interesting. Also, the Tara community mentioned on the bio, and like how they are so much closely related with nature and their ways of working. Are there any like some of the examples or like let's say traditional practices, stories that publicity the field might different so and then you would like to share with us? I have like I've been following Nature Nexus Nepal, LinkedIn Ma, and then even in Instagram, and I see the posts and stories, and I'm like, wow, like to I think something with the
Yeah.
potatoes cocido, कसरी
Yeah,
save गर्ने, so something
yeah,
like that. Could you share that with us?
yeah. Wow, wow. I think you. Thank you for the reminder, right, Vimaji? Thank you so much, right? I think that's what we do. That's what, like, I found the connection with traditional knowledge of Tao community, right?
Mm.
I think uh, before that, like, how it came actually, on my mind, why traditional ecological knowledge is very much significant, right? Why traditional practices are very much important, right? Uh, I mean, it's very like I will go exactly with what you asked, right? I mean, uh, so yeah, I mean, this is like our first year, right? Like there are a lot to be documented, right? Lot to be achieved, lot to be done, right? And lot to be understood, lot to be learned, relearned, right? Everything is going on. So they have traditional knowledge, right? They have lived with traditional practices for centuries, right? Because they are still living with the traditional knowledge, traditional practices, right? And they have the best understanding of climate resilience, right? Because they are living nearby the river. They are living around the shore of the river. So we have Mohona river, which is itself is a corridor. So Mohana corridor, like it connects the whole, like not whole, like some of the parts of Tarai. So Tharu communities are residing nearby the river, and they know exactly, like they are very much smart on fishing, on catching the fish, right? They are very much smart using bamboo, right? Bamboo, very sustainable product, right? They craft a lot of design by using the bamboo. Is bamboo? There is like house which is made up of bamboo, right? So like these are some like naturally sustainable product, right? And they try to use their traditional skills crafting the best product, which is very much eco-friendly, which is very much sustainable, which is very much for long use. And there is another example, right? They have very like indigenous seeds, like I want to go back to what you are thinking right now. Indigenous seed we call tharu alu, right? So especially for, so we try to harvest, I mean, like potatoes, right? Before that, we store in cold store, right? So that the sprouts, start coming. But they are not doing, right. They are not using such like advanced kind of, intervention, right? They are using their own, like, practices, right? So it's like they actually store inside that, like round shaped stuffs which is made of bamboo and khor. Khor is like, it's like kind of plants which is available in the flat land of the Tarai. So they make actually that kind of round shaped where they keep potatoes, right? So in the month of Kartik, like Nepali calendar, Kartik and Mangshir, these seed by that time start sprouting, and from one seed of that potato, they actually harvest more than 3 to 5 kg of potatoes. Right? Can you imagine more than 3 to 5 kg from single seed? That's
Wow.
the yeah. That's the values. That's the values, right? So that is what I actually documented right during my last visit, and there is a lot to be done as well, right, regarding indigenous knowledge and indigenous practices of Thai communities, right? So we are actually covering a lot of things. So it will take time. I mean, it's going smoothly, but we will try to update about those traditional practices that Thai communities are still adopting and still using. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, also, I think that कति टाइम चाहिँ मैले चाहिँ त्यो इन्स्टाग्राम वा लिङ्क्डइनमा त्यो स्टोरीहरू देखेर आई एम अल्सो लाइक वाउ हुन्छ नि कति कुराहरू चाहिँ हामीलाई थाहा पनि हुँदैन वा हामी त्यहाँ गएको पनि हुँदैन एन्ड देन इट्स लाइक सो गुड टु नो अनि हजुरले भने जस्तै उनीहरू रिभर ब्याङ्कको साइडमा बसेर दे आर सो मच अफ रेजिलियन्स विथ द क्लाइमेट विथ द काइन्ड अफ नेचर दे आर लिभिङ इन अनि त्यसरी नै दे आर रेजिलियन्ट अनि अहिले चाहिँ वी आर लाइक रिसर्च आइम नट ट्राइङ टु डिमिन रिसर्च एन्ड आइम सम वान हु लाइक टु रिसर्च होइन तर like advancement, materialism, with a lot of infrastructure, we are like trying to look what is the solution, what is the solution that, but sometimes often it's like very important to look back from where we come from, our roots, where was like our like previous ancestor where case or sikai, and then I think it's, and with time the generation funny it can at some point kind of extinct, which I hope it does not. And I think the organization like Nature Nexus Nepal just not conserve habitat restoration or ecosystem, but also the culture, right?
Yeah.
It adds to the community, the culture, and what they believe on, what they, I think, learn from their ancestor. And I think it's very important to get from one to another. And that's very like very nice to know. अलिकति goosebump पनि दिन्छ मलाई to understand that. Wow, I hope we don't lose that and we can kind of conserve it. Is there anything तपाईँलाई personally say when you go to this field, त्यहाँ अब to when you work with people or in this community like Tharo community, तपाईँलाई कुनै एउटा moment थियो like okay, oh this is something that I learned, like very important lesson personally, or like there were the moments that you would like to share? Okay, wow, this is the community and I'm learning so much myself, but also like personally मेरो चाहिँ reflection or यस्तो छ भने were there any moments that you would like to share?
Wow, I think I really appreciate, right, Vimaji, right? You actually drill down the kind of like question, right, and my personal understanding of of Tharu community, right, and their cultural values, right. I really appreciate for bringing this down on this live streaming, right. It's very much pathetic to say. I feel very pathetic myself, right. If we go to those communities, right, which are very much like, I mean, to the nature, right, slightly we are losing, right, slightly we are losing. We are losing the fact that, these traditional practices, like people are now more indulged into the advancement of this 21st century, right? And because of the advancement, right, we are slightly losing our roots. We try to go back to our basis, right? We try to go back to our originality, but still there are practically a lot of challenges, right? To be speaking honestly, I hope, right, not single person can actually save those cultural values of the community, right, or traditional practices of the community, but it has to have a kind of very mature understanding, right, in a very very good way of thinking, because I think we are embedded with nature. We cannot win over the natural phenomena, right. We have to respect to the nature. I think we cannot win any natural calamities, right. It is seriously dangerous actually, right, when we have to face such natural calamities, right. I think nothing can stop even those like artilleries, right, nuclear bombs, right, these, and no one can reach the kind of like label of nature, nature. So it's very much dangerous as well. So we have to think wisely. We have to protect and love the nature, right? And it come back. I mean, it come back to the retention of this kind of traditional knowledge, right? We have to retain traditional practices, right? How can we retain these traditional practices, right? Once I personally visited these communities, right, I found like they are living in their own space, right? I think, like, seriously, I found a lot of environmentalists, right? A lot of uh, conservationists, right? A lot of scientists, right? They try to go, try to research, they try to publish the publication, right? How about the kind of credibility, right? I mean, how about their involvement, right? Because they are the real custodian of the ecosystem, right? They better know locally and in a very environmentally as well, right, to deal with natural calamities, right? So we don't have to discard the participation, or like we need to get them into policy making process, right? We need to get them involved into publishing the articles, right, or publishing some books, and some policies, right? I think we need to take them into such decision making process, right? We cannot discard, we cannot ignore, because their values are more than what scientific intervention are. Yeah, seriously. So we have to incorporate, their understanding. We need to incorporate what exactly this traditional practice is, right? When we combine both scientific intervention and traditional practices of these indigenous communities, then it will definitely help to protect our ecosystem, and also it will benefit all living beings who actually are immediate in ecosystem, right? So I personally felt, I think this is the real time, the
Mm.
test of nature nexus Nepal, right? So I felt, I think we need to start documenting. We need to start at least posting, like, so that people around my circle, people around your circle, right, in our network, they get to understand. Wow, this is like perfect, right? This is a way to preserve traditional knowledge, some like traditional like indigenous seeds, right? So I mean, so that actually hit me, so I started doing so. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I mean, कति inspiration चाहिँ तपाईँले nature भन्दा पनि, I mean, like the people living in the community बाट पनि सिकिन्छ हैन? And I think that is something like I also resonate with, like the credibility को कुरा आउँदाखेरि चाहिँ we need to give that space and respect and credibility to those that kind of came up with, हैन? And then this reminded me of something. Maybe people would be interested, but like so when there was this outbreak of hantavirus, and then uh, maybe this is something related, but I just want to come to the point, like how indigenous community play a role, right? Because we are like advancing, researching, materialism, so much advancement with now with AI, like all the answers are there. So when the hantavirus forcefully like came up in this African region, so scientists were like very curious, like के भयो कसरी भयो किन चाहिँ यो खालको भाइरस आयो भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ the kind of community that was living in the African region, they already knew about this virus, in the sense like जब चाहिँ climate को यो there is a changes and the body पानी पर्छ त्यतिखेर चाहिँ माउसेसहरूको population body बढ्छ, and then this is when this kind of एक किसिमको kind of they would say disease kind of environment हुन्छ भनेर चाहिँ from the scientists knew from the community people, from the indigenous people. So they already have knowledge so much about the climate. It's that it often needs a lot of time for us to connect with them, eh? And then that's very important thing, that we need to give the space, the credibility, of course, as well. I don't know why I just bring, because somebody already भन्दाखेरि I was like, oh yeah, there was this this thing that I learned, and maybe it's nice to share with wife. If I could move on to another question, Birendra, like when, like you said that you're working with the community already, with our community, a lot of thing that needs to you meeting with people there and stuff. Are these community also involved in other like kind of initiative, like join with Nature Nexus Nepal? Like when it comes to habitat restoration, is there something like they are also building as a product, or they are like a part of something that is like also helping them socially and even economically in terms of their livelihood opportunity or not?
Yeah. Yeah, very good question, right? Um, like we are directly engaging the community, right, in our initiative, right? No doubt, we are doing habitat restoration, right? One of the major initiatives of Nature Nexus Nepal, and additionally, we are also trying to uplift the livelihood of vulnerable communities, right? So what we are doing agroforestry, right? One of the major initiative for livelihood opportunities. And the Thai community, I mean, we are trying to actually, uh, we're trying to, focus on small scale, right? So maybe if they are getting the getting the right resources and they are generating a very substantial revenues, right? They can upscale.
Mm.
We try to provide the resources, right, with small mini grant, right? Like we provide seeds, we provide resources, right? We provide training. So these are very much practically and important, right, for for those vulnerable communities, right? So I can take you to one of our community sites in Basanta, which is in Kailari rural municipality. So there is one community, so where we are actually doing uh, not like monoculture kind of agriculture, right? We are doing agroforestry. Agroforestry is slightly different than agriculture, right? So trees and crops, right? It's like different species, right? Not monoculture, but like when we intercrop, the trees, and then after herbs, then after crop, seasonal, off seasonal, vegetable, right? So it gives not only one time, product, right? But by the time of harvest of one like vegetable, then there is another, like vegetable, sprouting. So that's the very circular way of economics, right? So we are doing with that. So we did like in our 4 hectares of land, right? So private land of those communities, right? So and we also try to provide the incentives, right, if they are directly involved in our habitat restoration, right? Incentive in the sense, right, like because they are part of the ecosystem, right? They are giving their efforts, right? So we trying to engage them, as many initiatives that Nature Nexus Nepal is leading. So, and recently we set up the nursery using locally available product of that community, right? So we did not have to buy those all like steel or maybe bricks or all these like things, right? We purely used locally available product. For example, bamboo, which is very much available in the community, right? We use khar, the naturally available plant species, right? uh, I mean, and we used soil manure, of course, right, for poly putting in the poly bag, right? So we use manure
Mm.
and sand and fertilized soil. So we just established, right? So we inaugurated as well. I think last, yeah, yeah, this month we inaugurated nursery uh, like set a program, right? So yeah, it's going well, but like what next is it's very like still we are processing. Yeah.
That's so interesting, Kinamani. I mean, I'm about to touch the topic about circular economy. But the
Mm,
nursery topic build Go itself, it's like big on the design side, Like how is it designed? Like how
yeah.
is the resources are locally resourced in the sense
Mm,
like if it goes back to the nature, there wouldn't be a lot of intervention that like human intervention needed. I know the bamboo, topic collect card and all
mm,
those like manure and stuff. So
yeah.
it's so nice that you share that, we're gonna be talking about like circular economy, habitat stewardship. Is there any like we can find like a niche for it? I was about to ask, but then you're already practicing it, right?
Mm,
Um, so when we're talking about involving this kind of community parenting, is there a certain group of people like that you specifically work with? Are these women or young or youth? The farmer oriented group or like is there any certain I would say priority for the group of community that you work with, not community in the sense, but like age group or
mm.
gender, if
Yeah,
that makes
yeah.
sense. I'm not. I hope I'm not complicating the question. Yeah.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It is really relevant as well, right? Because I think of course, probably all institutions, right? They have certain like target
Focus group.
groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like what we do in our planning, right? There is the representation is quite diverse, right? So we have young people also. We have women like very dedicated, right? Like we always appreciate the kind of like participation of women, especially in habitat restoration. We have like elderly aged people because of the fact indigenous knowledge, right? They know like they know the real practice of indigenous knowledge, right? So we try to connect, we try to get those people, right? And so and we also formed two youth groups, right, in our two community forest. One is forest youth surveillance group in one community forest, and there is Chetanshil environmental conservation group in another community forest, right? So we recently did that. Like, I mean, we formed two groups of young people because we want to create a platform for these young people who are really interested to know about nature, who are really interested to know about ecosystem, who are really interested to connect people and the nature, right? So they are in between to connect. So yeah, we did that, and we touch with women, right? Very very like uh, important asset, right, for our initiatives, right? Yeah, I mean we are basically doing that. Like representation is quite diverse, so not like specifically, right, we are working with this group, right? Because conservation it brings so many like
Elements.
intersectionalities, right? Yeah, yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I mean it's very interesting. Um, like positive and after different focus group for Ruma, and then there's a diverse representative. Quite like I say, I mean, maybe we can go back a little bit, अलिकति descriptive, if you can explain. Habitat restoration भनेपछि for nature nexus Nepal अनि त्यो community what kind of practices, day-to-day practices it looks like, होइन अब daily practice मा चाहिँ okay, we are doing the habitat restoration. Is it something अझ तपाईँले नर्सरीको मेन्सन गर्नुभयो, seedling कुराहरू मेन्सन गर्नुभयो, but are there other practices that you do each day that kind of contribute to the habitat restoration?
Hmm. So like habitat restoration, as I mentioned previously, right? Habitat restoration is a very holistic approach, right, of building the ecosystem, right? So habitat restoration in the sense like like there is not even a single species, right? We try to introduce native species to this region, right? Like this subcontinent actually. So we don't try to introduce any foreign species, right? Like foreign species in the sense those species which got exported from outside the continent, right? I mean outside this region, right? We don't like to introduce such species, right? We try to procure the originality of those species, right, within the region. So like it is very diverse, different species, right? It looks very different when it comes to habitat restoration, and habitat restoration is, it will take like certain intervention, right, certain steps, right? We try to check the locality, we try to measure the whole map with the KML, right? The polygon map we call in our scientific intervention, right? So we try to map out and find out if this area is feasible for our habitat restoration approach or not. We try to check the water. I mean, we try to like find soil as well, right? What kind of soil? If the soil is okay, if it is not sandy, or if it is sandy loam, right? The nature of soil, if it is fertile, or if it is supportive or not, right, for the species to grow. So we do that. Then after we try to go with the communities, right, to understand, because they know exactly the locality, the location, right? Like they know pretty much about the region, right? So we try to do the primary, assessment, right, with the communities, right, trying to figure out if this region is, good enough for our, habitat restoration approach, right? And so then only, the site where we do our approach is finalized, right, after doing all, these, steps, right? So then after we start procuring, right, then we start doing the procurement of plant plant species, right? And I will, add one thing. So in Nepal, Vimaji, right, we the community, like, divisional forest, DFO, divisional forest
Mm-hmm.
offices, sub divisional, forest offices, they support they support, like, of course, right, this is their, responsibility, to protect the nature and to plant the right integrated landscape, right? So they provide, some saplings. So before that we have to have, collaboration and coordination, right? They cannot do, like, without any paper. So we have to, write the application, right? We have to give, proper map where our habitat restoration is going to, take place, right? So we do that, and we try to, find out, the suitability of species, right? The cannabis species, right? So here in Tarai Belt, right, we find, Soria robusta, the scientific name of sal. You know the sal book.
Ah, Salco. Mm.
Yeah. So the sal is very much predominant, right, especially in our region. So it
Mm.
is also regenerative as well. The fruits, right? The fruits fall down, and, like, it's like naturally regenerative species, right? So if you go, like, inside the sal, sal, trees, you will see a lot of flowers, right? Fallen down on the flat land, right? So it looks very regenerative. So it is not good, actually, right? If it is regenerative, then why we are taking the initiative, right? Habitat restoration in those regenerative region, right? Rather, what we can do is that we can actually protect those regenerative, right? Automatically, which are growing itself. We need to protect. We have to,
Mm.
take care of those, regenerative species, right? And also in Tarai area, in Tarai region, we have, uh, jamun,
Oh, yeah.
and yeah, jamun and sisam also,
Mm.
jamun, sisam and khair. These are
Oh,
predominantly available, right? And, and there is another one, like Bombax. Bombax is the scientific name of, there is one flower, like, a plant, what we call, right? It's called Bombax in, scientific term.
scientific name.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's very much popular, right? This kind of species, right? So
Mm.
we try to, procure, seeds of these, native species plant, and we
Mm.
find the right area, right, landscape where we can introduce these
Mm.
species. So it's like, step-wise, step process, right? And we have to go through intervention very, carefully, with cautious mindset. Yeah,
Wow, that's
yeah,
so interesting. Like, I'm like just imagining, like day to day, because how would be the day to day thing, Monera, and
yeah.
then
There's a
oh,
comment down. Yes, Simon. So we call it Simon. Thank you for the comment, right?
thank
Simon.
you, Shiji, for the comment. Seema,
Yeah, Simon. We
Bombax,
call it
okay.
Simon. Yeah,
Seema Guru, then that makes sense. Bombax,
yeah.
तर हजुरलाई साइन्टिफिक नेमहरू कस्तो याद हुँदो रहेछ है?
Yeah, it's like, learning, and yeah.
अँ, मलाई चाहिँ पहिला पहिला लाइक मेरो +2 पनि बायोलोजीमा थियो. आई डोन्ट नो इफ इट्स योर्स एज वेल. तर साइन्टिफिक नेम याद गर्न कति गाह्रो हुने क्या. कमन नेम चाहिँ याद हुने, तर साइन्टिफिक नेम चाहिँ अब अहिले बल्ल प्याजको याद आयो. लाइक आउट अफ नो वे प्याजको साइन्टिफिक नेम याद आइरहेछ मलाई. एनिवेज, like coming back to the topic, Virendraji, like when we talk about circular economy, होइन, communities are already practicing. अब Thai community को यस्तो native kind of like knowledge छ climate resilient सम्बन्धी, and they already have so much of in depth उनीहरूले आफ्नो environment बुझेको छ and everything. Even if they don't use the circular economy, do you think उहाँहरूको idea पनि is like it should be like very nature driven खालको खालको एक किसिमको आइडिया छ कि it should be more advanced, होइन, things should be done more in fast paced खालको छ. You being in the community with them, what's your
So uh, it's very, the topic. I mean, this, term is very very much popular, right? I mean, circular economy. But before it got popular, uh, and the community, has practiced, right, for centuries, right, in the circular economy, right. But we try to actually advance the right, the topic. We try to advance, with different ideas, right, with different innovation, which is very good, by the way, because this is exactly, this exactly makes sense, right? When we have innovation ideas, right, and try to incorporate with their ideas, then it gives a very perfect, balance, right? So we are balancing, innovative ideas as well as, traditional, knowledge of the community, and we are going on the right trajectory. We are going on the right direction. Like, it makes sense in that way, but still, long before the circular, economic, came, they have been, practicing well. So yeah, like I mentioned, right, traditional farming of the Tharu community, right? Like, you know, it's like, uh, they, the crops, then after, like, different layers, right? Different
Yeah.
layers. Then, uh, the crops, like, fall down, then, like, it became residues, for animals, right? And
Mm.
animals gives them gives, manure, right, and that manure is again back to the, soil. And I mean, this kind of, like, circular, economic kind of, understanding, they have been, following, for a long time. But also, like, and there is another, like, when it comes to, like, traditional, bamboo, like, bamboo housing, right. So because it's degradable, right, when it comes to bamboo, it is degradable, right. So when it is degradable, it is good for the nature. When it is good for the nature, it is good for the people. When it is good for the people, then again it is good for the nature, right. So it's just like more like, circular understanding of the economy, right. But that
Mm.
is not all, always the case, right, because we have to think very broadly, right, like how we can make our communities, right, more entrepreneurial kind of, mindset, right. Because at the end, everybody believes in their efforts, and when efforts, give the best satisfaction, right, then, like, we get like, the real
Motivate.
satisfaction. I mean, yeah. So like, my understanding is, we are right now introducing, right, agroforestry, right, which is itself is a circular economic, right, because we are introducing different layers of, of plant species, right, and because the production also matters. When production is there, then, I mean, uh, like, they get, revenue as well, and the
Mm.
revenue, where they want to spend the revenue is the matter, right. Like, if they are, upscaling their, uh, initiative, then of course, right, it will add up extra, so that way. And the
Mhm.
linear, economic is more like what, like, we are still practicing, of course, right? It's the reality. Like, we cannot hide the reality, right. So very very simple example of the linear economic, as you know, right, like, in the name of an infrastructure development, in the name of development, right, we are cutting down the, forest, right? Just cutting down the forest. We are extracting the resources, right? We build, and we are blocking the habitat of, endangered species, and we are going away. We are not taking the serious, steps actually to at least maintaining the eco-friendly infrastructure, right? This is very much against nature, right? This is called linear and very much what, crooked, crooked kind of, like, economic, right. So like, a very, smart way of economic when it comes to circular economic, right. Like, we need to be very much smart, right. If we are, developing, I mean, if we are, doing a lot of developments, right, we need to think about, eco-friendly infrastructure, right. Like, if we are, building, like, some infrastructure, right, we have to think about, nature, right? If it is, eco-friendly or not, if it is impacting our nature or not, if it is impacting, the people who are residing, in the nature, because maximum people, especially, in this belt of the country, are directly associated with, forest, right. They
Mm.
get a lot of resources, from the forest, right. If, such kind of infrastructure are continuously happening, I think, slightly there is a gap, there is gap in terms of relationship, right? So we don't like to see such gaps. So I mean, slightly everybody needs to think wisely that why we have to think about sustainability and why the circular economy is very much significant, right? For holistic
Yeah.
development of anything, right? So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, also by asking like even like we need to think smart, you know, especially when we are trading this kind of development, bringing it as a whenever infrastructure build it as a, then it always comes like I think the main core thing of circular economy मैले पनि आफै पढ्दाखेरि वा बुझ्दाखेरि is like on the design like कसरी चाहिँ like यो eco friendly बनाउने always going like to make the way towards like that it doesn't end up in just one but more like it kind of the regenerative system you know that
Yeah.
is based I think I already got your answer because I have listening to you for a long time right now but I think my next question was more on like because habitat restoration को कुरा गर्दाखेरि there might be some very specific things अघि तपाईले saplingको कुरा गर्नुभयो वा seedlings को कुराहरु गर्नुभयो and it might not be possible for her to know everything हैन as a human हैन तर I think a lot of learnings are from the community itself हजुरको but then is there also collaboration with researcher or like people from other areas and collaborative way of working on this together but yeah if that's something you also do.
I wish I would be wholeheartedly thankful to those partners, right, who are actually working in the conservation, right, publishing different articles, right. But like some came right around this kind of partnership, right, but it's still not in that way. But I really want, like, if there are some other, like, conservation partners who are wishing to work collaboratively, right, and maintaining a very good relationship with one another, because it is not about competition, it is about preserving those values, right? Those values, which is very, very much holistic, right? So I'm actually looking forward to such collaborative approaches, right? And I think, of course, right, if EcoSati Nepal is ready to collaborate, right, I am ready. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
really ready. And we are doing collaboration and coordination with like governmental entities, right? Governmental agencies, right? More like sapling distribution, right? So we try to coordinate with divisional and sub-divisional forest offices here in the region, but like in a very substantial way we haven't had such partnerships so far. So I mean, we are actually looking forward, right? And yeah, I mean, we will discuss later, like what we can do. Yeah.
No, like तपाईँले mention गर्नुभयो but mention गर्नु लगत्तैपछि I was thinking yes I mean there should be some kind of collaboration अनि I
Yeah.
think अहिले Dr. Manu दिदी अहिले यहाँ हुनुहुन्न maybe she's not online at the moment but I would definitely bring this and I brought this to her as well. Maybe there's something or some way that the community can be more benefited in the sense like I don't know. I'm just like brainstorming at the moment, but and I'm not in the position to decide. But maybe there would be some collaboration directly working with the community, and also like I don't know, building products that EcoSabi can have from that community and be in the market. Eh? So this is very exciting. I already feel like nice, good things, but I'll definitely let Manuditi know. Really, like we are kind of also coming to the close of our session. I think it's been like an hour that we've been speaking, and I'm really enjoying this whole chat. I could like listen to you and learn so much about community. But since we need to respect time as well, I know. Like you said, Nature Nexus Nepal has been well. It's recent, but the impact is there. But in the future, in the long term, what's your vision? Like, what do you want to do with Nature Nexus Nepal? How do you see it growing in the next? I mean, it's not an interview, but in the next 3 to 4 years down, तपाईँले चाहिँ कसरी देख्नुहुन्छ Nature Nexus नेपाललाई?
Vimarji, I think like you are right. Like the vision, like I mentioned, right. I think we try to build a very thriving ecosystem, right, where people and the nature are directly reciprocal to one another, right? So we want to see that beautiful and thriving ecosystem, right? And we want to connect people and nature as well, right? I think it's a very long term vision, but in achieving that long term in that vision, I think we have to go through a lot of hurdles, right? A lot of obstacles, and there are a lot to be done. I think we are in the beginning, right? So we cannot like straight that we will do this, we will do that, right? So like having had uh, experiences, right, realities, on the ground. I think I personally internalized that we need to trust in the process, right? So if we trust in the process, though it is slowly going forward, right? But of course, right, one day it will definitely reach the destination, right? And the destination will be amazing, right? So like what we are tantalizing, especially imagining is, I mean, so like Nature Nexus Nepal will definitely do the habitat restoration thing, right? But we try to multiply our core areas or thematic areas, right? For example, we will definitely work on documentation of indigenous practices, right? Because
Mhm.
this is very like my personal I trust by the indigenous knowledge of the community, right? And another thing is that is storytelling as well. And I really appreciate and applaud the Ecosat in Nepal, right? And which is, this is like that you are doing, right, in live interview, right? Which is very amazing, right? Because uh, I feel, there is something, in storytelling which will take you in a different level, right? I mean, your stories, right, community stories, have to be documented. And of course, right, people around the region, and beyond the region need to understand, right, how these communities are living together with the nature, right, with that climate resilient practices, right? They have been practicing for a long time. So storytelling is one of my favorites, right? Where I actually want to connect like their stories, right, and having a very effective conversation that we are having right now. So I'm looking more into that, like those extra thematic areas in forthcoming time. Dimas.
Wow, that would be. I think I think it's good to mention Policy Nature Nexus Nepal discovered Gorikosi, one of the stories, one, no, one of the videos that the mangrove community kind of published. And then it was like how the restoration is happening. I was like, wow, this is in Nepal. I mean, like, I don't have to go very, very far, This is happening in Nepal. And I have
Right.
to reach out to the people who's doing it, Bandibathu. So I think, yeah, the storytelling part is very important. And it has also has the power to like be self-explanatory about a lot of things, but especially in the indigenous community knowledge and the climate resilience thing. Maybe my second last question, and I don't want to bother you much, but like, what gives you hope that the coming future of conservation and environmental sustainability in Nepal, what keeps you always motivated, or what is that you are very hopeful about, like things would change, and then yeah.
Oh, uh, I would say that the futuristic plan of sustainability, right, and the future of Nepal and the ecosystem, right, within this region is very much crucial, right? And it has a lot of resources, right? I mean, it covers like uniqueness as well, right, within the region, right? And like if we think very globally, right, I think we have to start from locally as well, right? So look, I'm spending almost my whole like I was raised here in Hungary, right? Like, I mean, I feel I think I need to take them stories, right, to that platform, right? But it is not easy. It's not an easy task, right? So taking their stories in such big arena and big platform, right, where different stakeholders are eyeing toward you. I think it's very like inspiring as well, right? It keeps me motivated as well with that kind of stories, right? I think, and the communities, right, are like truly a great stakeholder as well. and the partnership that we are maintaining, especially for protecting the nature, is something very, very uh, welcoming as well. And so I mean, like there's a good future, good to say that there's a good future, right, in the conservation, especially, right, uh, when it comes to conservation, right, we think very diversely, right, and we have such partnership coming together. So I feel I'm not alone in this initiative. There are stakeholders, right, and seeing them and their initiatives, right, always actually keep me motivated, right, also. And I find, oh wow, I think this is great, right, so it keeps me motivated in that way. And also the willingness, right, within you. So if you see all these things and you are not interested at all, but externally you are very much captivated, but internally you are not, then it does not make any sense, right? So you have to have that equality, right? I mean, come on, right? So if you are having those changes in the community, right, you have to begin within yourself, right? That kind of change. So yeah, I have that. So maybe we will drill into a lot of things in the future as well, right? Yeah.
Wow. And my last question, Birendraji, like, do you have anything to address or to say, or a message to our audience in the Ecosati Nepal community? We have Bhagya Shri Bistaji saying thank you for the Ecosati Nepal and Nature Nexus Nepal for such a thing that you do. Thank you, Bhagya Shri ji, for the comment. But lastly, Birendraji, do you have anything on your last, I wouldn't say last message, but like anything you would like to say to our audience who would be looking this video at the end of the video? Yeah.
Of course, right. I don't have much to say, right? But firstly, I'm really glad, right, for the invitation by the Ecosati Nepal, and personally, I want to express my gratitude to you, Bimaji, and whoever listening, right? Maybe even after this live, right, because the video is still there. So yeah, I think there is lot to be done, right? And if we are very much positive about the future, right, so you can begin, within your periphery, right, you can begin from the space you are. I mean, like, you don't have to think too much, like, just begin from where you you are, right? So like, with even a small idea that can massively impact, right, in a very adequate way in the future, right? So that small idea can turn your future into something very fruitful result. So yeah, I mean, I also want to give the message to young people, right? Like, if they are actually even looking forward to some resources, right, some ideas, right? So under my leadership, in my capacity, what like Nature Nexus can deliver, so we will definitely help those young people, right? So I'm always looking forward to welcoming young people, right, for whatever the vision, right, especially if they are interested in conservation, right, or any entrepreneurship ideas, right. I'm always ready to provide such ideas and resources. Yeah, this much.
Yeah. Last question, because of the follow up, because you mentioned just about how they can connect. Would be the best way to connect you directly or in the Nature Nexus Nepal page? What would be the best way?
Okay, yeah, yeah. I think they can, like, if they know, like, if they want to really think about like that way, right? They can follow me, my personal Instagram ID, and there is Instagram ID of Nature Nexus Nepal, so they can just hit the follow button, right? And probably,
And
like,
send the message.
yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Virendra, for the time. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us and sharing all this knowledge. I really appreciate. I think this is our second chat. I really appreciate having this conversation with you and everything you're doing in the community. So all the best, and also I hope we can keep talking on the things that we really align on. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Bimaji, and likewise. Probably, we will have a lot to be done, right, in the future. Yeah.
Basta.
All
Thank
right.
you. Namaste. Ciao.
Bye.
Okay, so that was Birendra Bista, founder and executive director of Nature Nexus Nepal. Go and check out their page in Instagram, and also feel free to message or text whoever you think or you are interested in doing something, working with community, habitat restoration, agroforestry, everything that is interesting. I personally, if I was there, I would definitely go and do an internship and learn more about the community itself. So feel free and go to send that message, connect with Virendra and learn a lot of things about the community itself. So this was our 8th episode of Circular Chat at Ecosat Nepal. We're gonna come up with another episode, of course. That's gonna be another more thing that we would discuss about circular economy and how we fit in to the world of the domain of circular economy. So thank you for watching again. As I tell you every time, we all have a role to play. Be as an individual, community, as a society, you all have a role to play one way or another. So keep listening, keep learning more about circular economy, and then see you next time. Ciao. Have a nice evening.